The entire concept of indoor arena football was to take what made the sport popular and condense it down into an arena-sized package. Then in 2011, something interesting happened. One intrepid, bold team had a very bold idea to bring the sport to a new, bold location.
Is bold the right word?
In the weird, wild, slightly confusing history of arena football, there has been nothing like what happened in Spokane, Washington on July 9th, 2011. This is the story of the indoor football game played outdoors?
Saturday night, the Spokane Shock played host to another Arena Football League game. But this one a little different.
They're taking the indoor game outdoors.
The weather outside is weather. Can we find a place to play outside? And this is a great place to do it.
I've got an idea. Let's go outside.
A good idea is a good idea forever.
Yeah, okay.
I have razzed Spokane in the past, and I will razz Spokane in the future. It's slightly dumpy, a little methy. No one grows up thinking they're going to end up living their lives in Spokane, Washington. Even those who are from there, it just sort of happens. All that said, I will give credit where credit is due. Spokane is a really good sports town. Of course, you have Gonzaga, but there's also teams like the Spokane Indians who have done really well for themselves over the years. Meanwhile, the Spokane Chiefs of the WHL have been hugely supported in town for decades. And our tale just happens to begin with those very Spokane Chiefs. They organized what was then the WHL's very first outdoor game. This, of course, had become the cool thing to do at just about every level of hockey, and those running the Spokane side thought, why not bring it to our fair city? The contest was played at Albi Stadium, the home of the minor league baseball Spokane Indians, and was successful by all measurements, including the 11-2 scoreline in favor of the Chiefs, who counted Tyler Johnson among their scorers. He was so incredible for Spokane during that time, by the way. Yet somehow, some way, that amazing experience on ice would be outdone a few months later by a most unlikely neighbor, the Spokane Shock of the Arena Football League. That's right, a league with arena in its name and took pride in playing indoors, wanted to have their very own version of the NHL's Outdoor Classic. However, if there was one franchise in the AFL capable of pulling off this wild plan, it was certainly the Shock. The team burst onto the local sports scene in 2006, their very first season, by winning the AF2 championship. It was a barnstorming run, but the franchise's success wasn't simply limited to on-field efforts. Crowds of 10,000 plus were regularly turning up to Spokane Arena to watch what was a second division Arena Football League team. They would outdraw a lot of AFL sides during the next few years, won another championship in 2009. The Shock were really something else, and they were doing it at a lower level of the sport. So when the AFL eventually goes bankrupt in late 2008, doesn't play in 2009. One of the few silver linings to come from that would be the Shock receiving a call up to the top flight. Spokane did not disappoint in 2010 when packed crowds supported the Shock all the way to their very first Arena Bowl victory. As good as things were going for the franchise, Shock owner Brady Nelson and his partners did have a bit of a challenge on their hands. How do you create new fans? How do you get more people to come out and see your team when you're already selling out the venue most nights? It's a good problem to have, but a problem nonetheless. An unexpected change would allow for an even more unexpected solution. As the offseason progressed, AFL owners voted to expand the regular season by 2 games, meaning there would be an extra home contest for every AFL side in 2011. For the Shock front office, they'd already sold quite a few season ticket packages with an 8-game docket. That meant when they found out there would be 9 home games in 2011, they could explore different opportunities as far as doing something unique with it. All roads would eventually lead to the northwest corner of Spokane and the city's spiritual home of football and big events, Albi Stadium. The storied venue had hosted a little bit of everything over the years, including NFL and Canadian Football League preseason games, as well as an Elvis concert, but by 2011, it had certainly seen far better days. It did have everything the Shock needed, at least from a capacity standpoint. The team could fit in all of their season ticket holders as well as anyone in the greater greater inland Northwest who might be curious to see what an indoor football game looked like outdoors. Well, that was assuming they could actually pull off this feat. You know, putting a hockey game outside is a massive undertaking, but by 2011, when the Spokane Chiefs did it, there was a tried and true blueprint for them to follow. The requirements were straightforward. It was a known process. Putting an arena football game outdoors had never been done before and required solving some huge logistical challenges no one had ever tried up until this point. For instance, how do you raise the goalposts and nets that would hang from the ceiling in a traditional arena? The team would have count them, 4 months to figure everything out. It announced the Albi Stadium Summer Classic in March of 2011, with the game slated to happen in July. And make no mistake, those trying to plan this event needed every last second to make it work. For starters, the Shock had to bring in dasher boards from Yakima because the ones at Spokane Arena weren't all that portable. Then they had to find concrete that was heavy enough to support the dasher boards on the outdoor field while still having some give to them. So the concrete blocks couldn't be too heavy, but they couldn't be too light. They couldn't play on the turf already laid at Albi, so special decking was brought in, and then the team laid normal turf on top of that. The goalpost issue, that was solved by hiring 2 cranes which would suspend the goalpost and netting in the air throughout the duration of the contest. This was all very time consuming and very expensive. It took days to set up the outdoor classic field, and it also took days to take everything down. Ownership never revealed the cost of everything, but it had to cost a pretty penny. And they were moving forward with this massive undertaking with no real idea of what to expect. There weren't indoor football games being hosted outdoors on the regular. It was certainly a confusing sell to the public. Additionally, the Shock were not as good in 2011 as they had been the previous championship winning season. There was even some concern that the game at Albi would draw less fans than if the team had just played a regular game at Spokane Arena. Shock ownership was certainly mindful of this. They priced tickets starting at $10, but honestly, there were so many free tickets floating around Spokane in the build up to the game that if you didn't want to pay, you could find someone giving a ticket away. Meanwhile, kids would get into the free if they were wearing any jersey of any team of any kind. Like a kid under, I think it was 10 or 12, would get into the game for free with their paying parents. There was also an impact on players. A lot of these guys hadn't played an outdoor game for years. The teams would spend some time practicing outdoors in the build up to the game. Each side also had the opportunity to do a walkthrough the day before the game at Albi Stadium. Really though, no one participating in the game had an idea of how exactly things would work, how taking their sport of arena football and moving it outdoors, what would those results yield? No one could truly answer that question. There were also concerns about the weather. I mean, the inland Northwest is prone to the odd summer thunderstorm. The turf the Shock used was not made for use outdoors, so any sort of rainstorm could have potentially ruined it, not only for that game, but for use later on in the season over at Spokane Arena. Additionally, lightning and the potential for a take cover warning could have forced a cancellation that would have made this an absolute financial disaster. Despite all of the uncertainty and all of the risks involved, things really couldn't have gone much better. The game kicked off in Spokane with game time temperatures at a lovely 77 degrees. It was sunny, yet still cooler than the normal July evening in the city. More than 16,000 fans filled into both sides of Albi Stadium to see the Shock face off against the Utah Blaze. In all honesty, it plays out like your normal arena football game. I mean, there are a few quirks here and there for sure. Notably, there's a moment when a Spokane Shock receiver catches a touchdown pass and reaches out to brace himself on a dasher board that doesn't exist. A decision was made not to have in-zone dasher boards, both for viewing experience and just the complications of then needing to have doors and all of that. So Organizers were just like, we don't really need these end zone dasher boards, so they're not there, which led to that happening. It's also somewhat surreal seeing sunlight and shadows cast over an arena football game. Also, seeing a turf football field placed over a turf football field, it's a little disorienting. As for the game itself, you just got a classic AFL shootout. Utah and Spokane traded touchdowns early on. The Shock would pull away in the second half and won 76-49. Quarterback Eric Meyer of Eastern Washington really had himself a day. In a sport predicated on doing different things, on really just being bold, breaking the norm, this was a success. The general consensus from everyone involved, well, almost everyone involved, is that the outdoor game worked. Fans had a good time, ownership got the crowd and increased attention they were looking for. In fact, only one person out there seemed to dislike the AFL game, the indoor football game played outdoors, and that was AFL Commissioner Jerry Kurs. A man who had been around the sport for like 20-ish years at this point. Why was he so skeptical and dismissive of this game? I don't really know then. I don't know now. It doesn't make any sense, but he just was super passive aggressive towards the entire thing. In the build-up, he made it very clear he was allowing this to happen, but wasn't a fan of it. He went as far to say he was concerned about the fan experience. Come on, dude. 2 years ago, the AFL had been bankrupt and canceled an entire season. And that is going to happen a few years later down the road. But at this moment in time, 16,000 people wanted to come out and support your league in a city that is a standout as far as attendance is concerned. And you're complaining about fan experience priorities, dog. It actually gets worse from Kurs because during halftime of that game, here's what he told local media. It's not our game. Has a ball even gone into the stands yet? Fans were happy. Fans by and large were into the game. I mean, you had a few there who were just looky-loos, but here you have the AFL commissioner more concerned about not giving away enough free footballs. You know, KXLY sports anchor Dennis Patchen really sums up this entire situation better than I ever could.
Was the commissioner upset because he didn't think of this idea? Hey, Jerry Kurs, go pound sand.
That's the voice of the Vandals right there. For the record, Kurs has been involved with AFL, or now AF1, off and on again for like 30 years, and things only get worse with him involved. He may not be Lee Hutton bad, but he's not exactly doing a bang-up job either. Anyway, no one has tried to put another indoor football game outdoors since the Spokane Shock did it, you know, given the high costs involved as well as sort of the declining interest in arena and indoor football. It really hasn't made a lot of sense for another team to try it. Those Shock continued to win games, but attendance began to slip at Spokane Arena as well. Nelson eventually sold the team to a new group and things just really went downhill from there. That group opted to move the Shock from the AFL to the IFL, but since the AFL owned the Shock branding and name, they couldn't use that anymore. They folded in 2017, only for former Seattle Seahawks defensive tackle Sam Adams to bring them back in 2021. His reign did not go well. The team wasn't very successful in 2021, and then he bounced a deposit on Spokane Arena ahead of the 2022 season. It's a wild tale best told on another day. And then we finally have Joe Albi Stadium. It would be demolished in 2022 after living a full rewarding life as a sporting facility. I was sad to see it go, but I can also admit there really wasn't much worth saving outside the Joe fan statue, and that would be relocated to the city's new sporting complex, One Spokane Stadium. Joe Albi was also lousy with asbestos, so there's that as well. When all is said and done, people in Spokane still talk about the indoor football game played outdoors. It was definitely weird. It was certainly confusing, yet despite what Jerry Kurs may think, it was a rousing success. It's not something to be done all the time or in every market. I don't even think it should be an annual thing. But in the right market, with the right venue, and having learned all of the lessons that were learned from the Spokane contest, playing another indoor football game outdoors is worth considering. If for nothing more than the spectacle and attention it would garner, especially now in the social media age. Let's not forget, 2011, we're still in the early stages of Facebook and Twitter. It didn't get a lot of buzz, but if you put an indoor football game outdoors, today, just imagine the attention it would receive. At the very least, people would be talking about it and the sport, that's for damn sure. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. If you travel down from Spokane and then veer east in Pullman, you'll find Moscow, Idaho. And there is quite the story about the University of Idaho's own Kibbie Dome, one of the most beloved college football stadiums around. And you can learn about how it almost didn't have a dome in the video in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. And to recount the saddest game of arena football ever played, that'd be the video in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. And until next time, I am Cheyenne Hollis. This is The Touchback, and as always, hashtag take it out, the 25.